Welcome to Whispering Blooms. I'm Allison, and this is the final segment of our Block of the Week series. We have been using the Stripology rulers to create this gorgeous mini. All of the patterns can be found below, and you can also find where you can get the kit if you want to do this exact same project. If you've missed any of the videos, no worries. Just go back in our YouTube channel and you'll see everything that you need to know. Let's get started. Let's start putting her together by doing a simple 9 patch. And so we have 9 pieces laid out here. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our rows together. Okay, so I like to stitch this one to this one, this to this, and this to this. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to finish those rows off by stitching these to these. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to make sure that my outer rows, these two right here, are pressed out. So I'm going to be pressing toward my beautiful star here, and the center rows are going to be pressed in toward my medallion. Adding the inner borders are very important, and the reason why is because we want to make sure that we have a square quilt going forward. In order to add any border, you always want to do it in a specific way. The way I do it is I take my border piece. I have measured this to be 21.5 inches. Sometimes these little seams will stretch just a little bit, and so be aware of that we keep this as the 21.5 inches. And this is with any quilt. You want to make sure that your borders stay the same. And so what I've done is I've folded it in half and lined up my half right there, and then I'm going to take and line up the ends. And so the first thing I do is I pin my end pieces, and then I pin my middle piece. If this were a larger quilt, I probably would have started with the middle and worked my way out. And then I always say that I want to pin in the middles. And so in this case, I have that piece right there and this piece right here. Now, if I have any tricky pieces under here that I want to make sure are going in the same direction, then I would definitely pin where those pieces are. If I end up where I have a lot of fabric loose up here or a lot of fabric loose down here, my loose fabric is definitely on the bottom of my quilt. I'm going to put this loose fabric toward the feed dogs of my machine because it will naturally gather those pieces in, and I won't have to worry about stretching the fabric or anything like that on top. All right, I'm going to add the top and the bottom border, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I am a little bit longer on this bottom section, and so it is so important to make sure that you're going from the center out so that you can make sure that you get those pieces to fit inside. So you can sort of see how I'm a little bit off. That is not going to be a problem when it gets to the sewing machine. It's going to ease everything right in the way it's supposed to be. But it's important to pin very well so that when I get to the sewing machine, the feed dogs can do what they need to do to make it happen. Our final step is to create these corners. So let's get started. I like to start by laying everything out. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this row together and this row together, iron them, and then I'm going to stitch this row to this row. I want to point out that when you're stitching these, the corner sections are going to go out 1/4 inch, and you want that. And so when they come out, they're a little bit past the edge, and that's exactly what you want. I also like to make sure when I'm lining this up that I am lining up with my horizontal line here and my vertical line. Sometimes we have a tendency to sort of get off like that, and that will help you keep everything in line. If you're having a problem with this being a little bit too long, just remember that you want to make sure you have that 1/4 inch there. And if you have to, pin it to make sure that it's going to be right. And then the last little piece for this blocked section is to do our little triangle at the top. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm getting that centered on here because I will be trimming down just a little bit as I come on, and I want to make sure I have my tip right. So I go ahead and fold this in half so that my right sides are together, and that way I can place this right on the center there, and then when I open it up I have my halfway point, and then I do my pinning so that I keep that halfway point right there, and I'm going to go ahead and pin on either side as well, and then I'll stitch and show you how we're going to trim this down just a little bit before we add on to the center. All right, I have my corners finished, and this is what I'm looking for. Look at this gorgeous straight line. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, but that doesn't happen every time. So look over here on this piece. We're a little bit over here, and so I'm going to take my Stripology squared ruler, and I'm going to use that ruler on the edge. Oops, gotta move everything else out of the way. I'm going to use this ruler on the edge just to trim up and make this whole edge nice and neat. So, and that will just make it nice when we are going to add that border on, that we have everything very nicely placed. Okay, and so then I'm going to do the same thing over here where I'm just sort of getting rid of these little bunny ears hanging out here, dog ears, bunny ears, cat ears. I'm going to get rid of my little pieces of fabric, and that just makes everything nice and straight so that when we go to put this on the rest of the quilt and go to put our borders on, it's going to be easy. To place my borders on, or my triangle sections to the border, I have folded in half and made a crease just like I did with regular borders. And I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to fold this in half. Actually, I'm going to do it right side. Right there. I'm going to fold that in half so that I have a nice crease right there in the center of that block. And then I'm going to place that crease right in there, and I'm going to pin that center. And that way I know I am definitely getting my center. And then I'm going to move on out to the end here and pin right there. And as usual, I stick a few pins in there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then we're almost there. How cool is that? How exciting. We're down to the final border. So I am going to put these borders on just like I did before. I am going to start by finding my halfway point right here, and then taking my border fabric and placing it right there so that my center is right there on that center. And then I'm going to make them fit right in because I want to make sure that the quilt remains square. And so the give is in the pieced fabric. So I'm going to place this right here on the end so that you can see it. And then I'm going to straighten that out just like that so that I can find those middle points. And when I get to the sewing machine, I'm going to keep my border fabric on top because the fabric that's giving is the fabric that's underneath because it's the one with the seams. I'm going to do the middle of these two pins. I like to have my pins 4 to 5 inches apart when I'm finishing my quilts. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing to this side. So we're going to start by going at the end. And I like to go ahead and do the second border right here. And so you can see how I fold up my quilt so that I can do the same exact thing all at the same time. Keeps everything nice and neat. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half, find my center. And that finishes up our Whispering Blooms mini quilt series. I hope that you have enjoyed this series as much as I have. I love this quilt. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe, comment, like, do all that other social media stuff. And make sure that you follow along because QuiltNCode will be coming out with much more in the future. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.